Hi, I'm Christian. Have you ever been a part of something that made you super excited? I can remember one time my favorite band was coming to town, and I really wanted to help out with the show. I helped guide people to their seats and set up and take down some of the equipment, and it just felt so exciting to be a part of it. Let's check out today's God story and see how all these different people came together to play a role in God's big story. Watch this.
Okay, folks. Hey, it's Lisa, and it's the last time I'll be hanging out with you talking about the story of Jacob. But first, I want to ask you a question. Did you love getting school projects the same way I did when I was growing up? I would just love when the teacher would give us an assignment and I knew everybody in my group would do their part. They would do their research, get the poster ready, and we could hand it in on time. And that never happened. I'm guessing that might be the same for you, but wouldn't it be amazing if everybody who worked on the project did their part to get the job done? That reminds me of today's big idea. Everyone has a part to play in God's big story. Today's God story is about Jacob, who gets renamed Israel. Remember that guy? Well, he was the grandson of Abraham, and his dad's name was Isaac. But Jacob stole the blessing that was meant for his brother, and then he fled from his brother because he was afraid of him. And while he was in hiding, he heard from God, and God promised to be with him wherever he went. Then Jacob got married, had a whole bunch of kids. He was reconciled with his brother and made peace with him, and then he was renamed Israel. Remember that guy? We're going to catch up with Jacob and his family as they're about to leave a place called Bethel. You might remember, Jacob set up an altar there to God, and that's where he heard from God and got his new name. As they're leaving this place, Jacob's wife Rachel goes into labor. Let's read that from the Bible. After a very hard delivery, the midwife finally exclaimed, "Don't be afraid, you have another son." Rachel was about to die, but with her last breath, she named the baby Benoni, which means son of my sorrow. The baby's father, however, called him Benjamin, which means son of my right hand. So Rachel died, oh no, and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. Jacob set up a stone monument over Rachel's grave, and it can be seen there to this day. Man, that's really sad. But just to recap, Rachel went into labor and had really intense labor pains, but she had a delivery and her midwife told her she had another baby boy. That's Jacob's 12th son to be exact. Unfortunately, because of complications, Rachel died. Jacob named his new son Benjamin, and they buried Rachel and set up a monument for her. Sometimes we can read things like this in the Bible and wonder why on earth they're even in there. Why do we need to know that Rachel gave birth to a son and then died? But it's all part of God's big story. You see, Rachel gave birth to Jacob's last son, his 12th son, and they would later become the 12 tribes of Israel. Rachel didn't just give birth to any baby boy. He would go on to become the head of a tribe that would become the nation that Jesus would be born into. And for Rachel, that was the part she played. And that reminds us of today's big idea, that everyone has a part to play in God's big story. It'll probably all look really different, but what's really cool is we each have a part to play. As Christ followers, we have the exciting job of going and making disciples. And we have other roles to play too, based on our unique gifts or spiritual gifts that come from the Holy Spirit. No matter where you're at in life, you need to know everyone, that's me, that's you, has a part to play in God's big story. That's it for this series. Cheers!
Wow, that was interesting. Did you catch that we didn't necessarily read a lot about Rachel, but she still had a very important part to play in God's story? And the same applies to us. We may not always see the value in the small things we do, but these things can bring about change in people's lives. Let's check in with Samara and see more about her life story.
I'm Samara, and I love cleaning. I love cleaning dishes, scrubbing out toilet bowls, sweeping, all that stuff. No, I don't. But I do like playing violin, running, and drawing. So about 8 years ago, my dad got connected with this older lady who just needed a lot of help with everyday things. And so my sister and I, we began to clean for her. Sometimes we take her dog out for a walk because the dog, it just didn't get to go outside that often. It wasn't always the nicest because the dog would poop inside the house. It didn't have very good manners, I guess you could say, for a dog. So we just help out and take the dog for a walk, stuff like that. And then inside, I do a lot in the kitchen, you know, cleaning up dishes, making sure everything was like neat and tidy. There wasn't like food left out, stuff like that. And then we'd go on and we'd sweep and mop and vacuum the floors, dust things, just anything to keep up on the house because we just needed to make sure that it didn't get way too unruly. She didn't really have a lot of people who she could connect to. My family and I were some of the only people who really interacted with her, which meant that we really did our best to like keep her company. So, you know, we just like make her tea sometimes and we just be very intentional about connecting with her and talking to her and giving her someone to have company with. Other places that I can show God's love is through the youth group at my church called Echo. We have a student leadership team there called the Catalyst team, where students can choose to just be a closer part of the Echo community. This means that we set up before events. We help wherever it's needed. If they need someone to just set up chairs or tables, we do that. If they need someone to serve food or interact with kids, because we have a lot of like new students who come, and so we have to make sure that we interact with them, make them feel welcome, make them feel like they're a part of the community, stuff like that. So we just do our best to help out wherever it's needed. Cleaning isn't always, you know, the most fun thing to do, but it is like a really good way to just help serve others. I think it's a really humbling experience. It shows that other people are really important too, and everyone deserves to like be shown God's love. And so I think it's just really good for me to like remind myself that if I were in their position, I'd really appreciate this help. And it's a very good feeling to know that like you can serve others and show them God's love.
Samara mentioned that she was very intentional about helping a senior citizen in her community. I think the key to Samara's role in her community was that she wanted to show God's love to others, and that's something we all can do in many different ways. So let's break into our small groups and see how this looks in our own lives.